How's it going?
I'm fine.
What part of Israel are you from?
I'm very close to Jerusalem. I'm sitting in the settlements. It's called Psagot. It's not far from Bet El and Dofra. Do you know those places?
Absolutely. I lived in Kohav Shachar for 5 years.
Sure. So we're not far from Kohav Shachar. Yes, we're in the same region.
For sure. So you're a Sabra? That you grew up in Israel?
My parents did Aliyah from the United States, but I was very young. No, I don't remember anything from the United States.
So you have a very large and influential Noahide organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm the executive director. This is how we call it. I think so. This is the name. Yes, we do have a very large, very big organization, the Noahide. The Noahide movement is basically people from all over the world who understand that the Hebrew nation got two, I would say, Bibles. They got the written Bible and the oral Bible. And we preserve the main understanding as the oral Bible we have. We preserve basically the prophecy or the prophet idea that we had. And in the oral Bible, it says a lot of things that are related not only to the Jews, but also to all of the people of the world, because God created all of the world. He didn't create it only us, only the Hebrew people. He created everybody. I will say that the first idea that I can say is that the Hebrew nation is saying loud and clear for more than 4,000 years that all human beings came from one person, from Adam, and even his wife came from him. Therefore, we will, at the end of the days, we will get united together. And like we have people in the Hebrew nation who have all sorts of more obligations than others, for example, the Kohanim, that have more obligations than just a normal Jew. On the same level, there are also the Jews who have more obligations than the others, but the Torah is speaking to everybody. And today, I will say another sentence, we are holding a big site, but not only a site, we're also giving lectures, teaching people around the world with 8 languages, Telugu it's called, this is a language in India, German, English, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, and what did I forget? I think I forgot something. And we are holding connection with hundreds of people every week on a weekly basis, and also thousands of people that are around us all the time.
Mm-hmm. What got you to do this form of kiruv? Like, for example, I worked as a Makarav in Hebrew U for around 5 years. My job was to get kids on birthright on Ben Yehuda and try to put them in yeshiva. And this is typically what Jews do nowadays. They reach out to people who are born Jewish. What made you want to reach out to Gentiles?
Very good question. The answer is the timing of this of the life of the world that we are today. So it's coming in a combined situation. It's coming from the time that we did the redemption, the Hebrew nation, and we came back to our homeland after 2,000 years, and we are teaching, I will say, we are exposing to the rest of the world that not only on the personal level you can do redemption, but also on a nation level you can do redemption, and it's giving a lot of hope and a lot of people getting very much, I will say, a lot of hope that there will be a redemption also for the full world, not only for the Hebrew nation. And also a lot of people from the world are asking us, demanding from us. I think that the most amazing thing is to find people who were in a high rank position in the Christian world. And they suddenly found that they don't know the scripture of the Old Testament because they were not allowed to read this in the 13th century. They did some sort of a committee, they decided that the people are not allowed to read the Old Testament. And suddenly they see a lot of things there in the Old Testament, and they're asking the rabbis to explain what's happening. So I can tell you as a Jewish person that we know that at the end of the days, and we are starting to scratch those days today, there will be a revolution in the Torah, in the Bible, and the Jewish are supposed to teach also non-Jewish people those truth and what God has to say to us and the connection with God. So we are part of rabbis who took this, I will say, opportunity. And when people are asking us what we have to say, we're trying to teach them. We're doing this in all sorts of ways. And the community of this Noachide is growing and getting bigger and bigger. I want also note another very important point. We are not doing interfaith conversations. Okay? The Hebrew nation is living in a different dimension. Our dimension is the prophecy dimension, and we are preserving it. All of the rest are all sorts of religions that have maybe all sorts of spirituality levels, but none of them are speaking on the level of the prophecy. Only the Hebrew nation is speaking on the prophecy level. And therefore, if someone wants to stay, I will say, Christian, and he's believing in Jesus, and those things that. So it's not the Jewish way. We're not fighting anyone. We're just saying to ourselves it will take him time to acknowledge the truth. At this point of time, so we have also some sort of a small site, I will say, next to us. The Noachide will center also the site of the Bible, so for those who want to learn the Bible. But more and more people acknowledging that we are speaking about a different level, and they're learning from us, and they're asking us, they're demanding us to teach them. So we're doing so, what we are allowed.
Are you affiliated in any way with the New Sanhedrin?
We're working together for about few things. We're not really affiliated with them. We're not against them. Okay, for example, the last Sanhedrin, they did a big committee in Israel a few months ago. They invited us to speak there. We have all sorts of connections with them, but it's not exactly on the same, I will say, ideology. We have a bit of slightly different with the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is more doing interfaith discussions with everybody who is coming there. And we do believe that the Hebrew nation has some sort of a truth that it's not on this, as I said before, it's a different dimension. It's not in the same dimension. So it's not that we're not fighting one with each other. We do some sort of cooperations between us. For example, in another few months, we want to do another big seminar in Israel. And there, I think that this seminar will be with much more connections between those two organizations. But we are two different organizations, and we have also some separations between us.
The New Sanhedrin goes through the whole process for Noahites who want to be accepted the halachic way. The halakha says a ger toshav is accepted in a court of three, formally. Do you take your Noahites to them to receive that recognition?
It's the opposite way around. When they have a Noachide, they bring them to us. This is part of the relationship and cooperation that we are doing. When they have people for the Noachide and things like that, they're getting our advices, and they're also bringing them to us. This is part of the cooperation that we do. This is where we're working together, I will say it like that. But you're right. The halachic way, I will say it like that. The best halachic way is that a person will do this declaration in front of three Jewish, Orthodox Jewish people. We also have, I will say, there is another, we need to understand the principle, why we need to do that. And the reason is that you can be a very smart person and to decide that you want to do those halachic issues like not to steal, not to kill anyone, not to do sexual immorality and those things. Those are the 7 laws. It's very logical, you know. You can say to yourself, okay, I'm doing those things because it's very logical. But the question is, are you doing those things because you want to be related with God? Okay, the word mitzvah in Hebrew, it's also coming from the word tzevet. So the word commandment in English is not saying the word tzevet. The tzevet is team. If you do things because you are related with God and because God obeyed you to do that, so you're getting part of his elite team of God. It's the same word in Hebrew. Tzevet, mitzvah, it's the same word. And the Maharan is also explaining this in one of his books, that you're doing those commandments, you're getting part of the elite team of God. So when you do this declaration in front of 3 Jewish people, and you're saying to yourself that you're doing it, those mitzvot, those commandments, you're doing it because you want to be connected with God, this is another level. And we have today also a system, I will say it like that you can do this declaration for yourself. Okay, this is, I will say, the preliminary, the first step, to do it for yourself, that you're accepting those mitzvot, those commandments, because you believe in God and you want to get connected with Him. And the next stage also is to do this in front of the Jewish people, and this is the best way. I will also mention that when someone is accepting this thing upon himself, with his family, with his wife and everything, so if the next generation doesn't supposed to get it again or accept it again in front of the Jewish people. Okay, the community is accepting these laws because God demanded it. So the next generation, they're already inside, I will say it like that. They're already inside to this thing. So today we have those 2 ways, doing it in front of 3 rabbis or starting it in the first step, even before that, by declaring for yourself. And we have those things on the site, on our site, on the Bible site, and then on the Noachite site. And this is the way that people are saying to themselves, I'm not doing those things only because it's it's a very logical thing, but I'm doing those things because I want to be connected with God. He demanded us to do those things. Vayetzav Hashem Elohim et Adam. God commandment every person to do those things.
There's different concepts at work here. There's the notion of a noid, is at least according to the Rambam, those who are known as the Chasidei Umot Haolam, and then there's the notion of a Ger Toshav. So a Ger Toshav, it says that they accept him with a cord of 3. The Rambam goes further and he says that that we only accept when the Yovel year is kept. However, to have a Chelik in Olam Haba, those who are called the Chasidei Umot Haolam, those have to really accept 8 commandments, because the last commandment is to believe that all this came through Moshe Rabbeinu and Har Sinai. One doesn't necessarily tie into the other. I know it's not very encouraging for someone to want to do this unless they're promised a place in the world to come, but it's not the same Ger Toshav. It seems like it's a different status. Because the Rambam said that if someone accepts it because it makes sense to him, then he's a fool. But if he accepts it because Hashem told him to do it, that's when he's wise.
Yes. So, I want to be one step more exact with what you said. You said good things, but if you give me permission, I will be a bit more exact. Okay? With your permission. Sure. Ger Toshav is someone who is living in Israel, in the Israel state. Okay? When someone is accepting, the definition that you did between someone who is accepting those commandments, those mitzvot, because God told him, and he is obeying God, and this is what I said before, that it's also is being part of the elite team of God. When someone is accepting this all by himself as a first step, or in front of 3 people, 3 Jewish people, and in the most important step, of course he is getting part, a portion in the world to come. This is for sure. Now those that are also moving themselves to live in Israel, and when they are living in Israel, and only when we have the Yovel, we don't have the Yovel yet, this is where we call them also Ger Toshav, because they're living here. If they're not living here in Israel, they are on the level of Chasidei Umot HaOlam, of those who have the passion of the world to come. They are getting these parts for themselves, and the truth is they don't supposed to live in Israel. Not all of the world is supposed to live in Israel. This is the place, the holy place, that the Jewish people are supposed to live here. All of the Jewish people are supposed to live in Israel, and the rest of the world are living each one in their place. But Jerusalem is going to be the center of everything. Okay, I will say it like that, and maybe it's something that you will say, and you will put it, on the internet. But I'm standing in behind of what I'm going to say. The truth is that the United Nations building is going to move to Israel, because at the end of the day, the main place where all of the nations will be togetherness, and they will come and will pray to the same God and everything else, is going to be in the mountain of God in Jerusalem. So it's only a question of time. We all know that the United Nations is going to be in Jerusalem. The main core that we have today in Europe is going to be in Jerusalem. So it's a question of time. But not everybody is going to live in Israel. But those from the other nations who accepted in front of three Jewish people, in front of these courts, those commandments, if some of them will live in Israel, and they will be like that. Always there are people that are not from the Hebrew nation who are living in Israel. They are being called Ger Toshav. Today we don't have the Ger Toshav because of the problem of the Yovel, and not all of the Hebrew nation is sitting in Israel. Therefore, there are all sorts of halachic things that are not with us. But to become a Noachite that is fully accepted to the world to come and get part of it and everything else, this is, again, when you declare for yourself, you do the first step. When you declare in front of three Jewish people, you are fully Noachite person, and even with the Rambam, when you know that, with the Khatam Sofer, they are also allowed to do other mitzvot. So I'm not going to go to this debate.
No, but it sounds that accepting it before three is only to be a Ger Toshav. Being one of the Chasidei Umot HaOlam has nothing to do with going in front of a Beit Din. Because a Ger Toshav means that mamash, you're living on the land. Toshav, it means you're there.
Exactly.
While a Noahide doesn't have to formally accept these laws, formally, in front of a Beit Din.
So I will answer you that. You're more than right. What you said now, if you want to go inside to this detail, this is how the Ritva, okay, Rabbi Yom Tov, the student of the Rashba, student of the Ran, the student of the Rashba, is a colleague of the Ran. This is how the Ritva is explaining, and this is what the Ritva is saying, that to become a Noachide, you don't need to do it in front of three Jewish people. It's enough that you will declare for yourself, and this is why we did also this option on the internet, so you can declare, and we're sending you straight ahead, your declaration, and you declare that you're accepting those commandments. But the Rambam, and it's a bit more complicated, but the Rambam is saying that also to become a Noachide, you need to declare in front of three people. And therefore we're saying, if you want to get...
Well, Ger Toshav, not a Noachide, right? But to become a Ger Toshav, you have to do it before three.
With the Rambam, we can also understand. You can also understand. We can also understand that he is saying also to become a Noachide, you need to do it in front of three. But as I said, also in our site, you don't need to do it in front of three. Even before that, if you're doing this declaration only for yourself, this is also already, you're getting, on this statement, and that you're accepting those laws under God, I will say, and how the Hebrew nation is guiding you, the Hebrew nation, the rabbis of the Orthodox strength through Moses. So already when you're doing this self-declaration, you're getting position in the world to come. You're getting part of the world to come. It's not a question even.
I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this. It's because there's a movement out there called the Ger movement, the Ger Toshab movement. And there's a lot of controversy with what they do and what they teach, and I'm trying to make a distinction with their movement and your movement.
First of all, thank you very much for raising this up, because in the last, I will say, 4 weeks, I think that I got so many people who spoke with me about this thing of the Ger Toshav. And you're more than right. To become a Ger Toshav, first of all, you need to live in Israel, and you need to stand in front of a Beit Din of 3 Jewish people. And if you do a self-declaration, the maximum that you can become is a Noachite, not more than that. And I know that there is a very big movement out there, especially in the United States, with a few people who are a bit confusing them. Okay, I'm an ordinary rabbi, and we are a group of rabbis that got also the permission and certificate. You can see it all on my site, but not only from the government, from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, and the other governmental people who are working with us and saying that we are the reference for the Noachite, but also from the main rabbinical of the Hebrew rabbinical of the Jewish rabbinical today in Israel. Okay, we're speaking about from Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu Zecher Tzadik Livracha, also the last rabbis, also those rabbis. From all of them we got certificates and recognition that we are the movement who is dealing for the rabbinical Rabbanut Rashit, the main rabbinical of Israel state, that is dealing with the Noachite. And I know that this Ger movement is confusing a lot of people, because people think that when they're going to do or to speak or to stand in front of 3 people, they are Ger Toshav. People are not Ger Toshav like that. The maximum that the people are Noachite like that. To become a Ger Toshav, you need to be a resident of Israel. It's supposed to be after the Yovel. And unfortunately, there is a lot of misunderstanding, and it's good that you mentioned these points. We are not giving certificates to people that they're becoming Ger Toshav. We can't, because we don't have the Yovel yet. So we have a problem with the timing, and we have a problem with the place. I will say to you something maybe even a bit funny, that 2 months ago, I got a letter from someone who is living in Ukraine. Ukraine is north from Israel. And he said to me, look, I did this declaration in front of 3 people. And since I can't find anywhere in the Bible that the borders of Israel are finishing somewhere in the north, therefore, I'm a Ger Toshav. I'm living in the Israel state, in the Israel land, not Israel state, in the Israel land. Israel wrote to me. And I did this declaration, so I'm a Ger Toshav. So first of all, I referred to him, the verses where it says where the borders are finishing, the limited of the borders in the north. And I said to him, unfortunately, even if you will do it in front of 3 and you will come now to Israel, you won't be a Ger Toshav because you don't have the Yovel yet. So you will be a very, righteous person, who will appreciate you, who will help you and everything else, but don't be with an imagination about what's happening here. So, it's a good point, and it's good that you mentioned it. Yeah.
Rav Avraham Kook held, in terms of his Heter Mechira, that the Muslims in Israel have the status of a Ger Toshav. How do you feel about this?
I will tell you what I feel about it. In the last Shemitah, 5 years ago, the Rabbanut turned to us and asked us to bring them someone that is a Noachide to do the Mechira to a Noachide, and not to do the Mechira to the Arab Muslims. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I will say that also the Rabbanut today understands that the Noachide movement is much bigger and much stronger than in the days of Rabbi Avraham Kook. The reason why he's saying that, it's something that we need to know, is because the Muslims believe also in one God, not like the Christian who believes in the triology. How do you call it?
The Trinity.
Yes, and the Muslims believe in one God, and therefore they are preferable to sell them and not to sell to others. It's something that it was in his days. Today we have again more people that are with us. I will also say to you, we started the conversation. You asked me where I'm living. I'm living in Psagot, and it's one of the settlements in Judah and Samaria. Most of my friends who knows what I'm doing, they're saying to me all the time, when are you going to approach the Arabs? Because this is what is going to solve the big contradiction and the big argument that we have today on this land. Because when they will accept that these Noahide laws, the Arabs, then they will accept that, everything here will come back to the place. The Hebrew people are the people of the land, and they are guests, like Ger Toshav. With the Arabs, it's a bit more complicated. I think that if you look in the Bible, and you know the stories, so you see that the Arabs came from Hagar, who was, she was the slavery of Abraham. She wasn't the main woman of Abraham, and the Arabs don't want to the Pelegesh, what we call Pelegesh. The Arabs don't want to admit their situation. But it's interesting when you know inside of it the story and what's happening here. Their main people do acknowledge their situation, and the fight here is more on a religious basis. And hopefully we will continue on with our truth at the end, like. I will say it like that. 100 years ago, when my grandfather ran away from Vilna, to the United States, I don't know how he dared to think that one day there will be a Jewish state. Because in his days, the Sultan and the people who hold this country for more than 400 years, the Turkish people, they said that they're not going to give any permission to the Jews to come into Israel. But we know that in history, in the last 100 years, the state of Israel not only became to reality, but also became something very strong and very powerful with a lot of good things that it's doing to the whole world. So if we're looking on all of the prophecies around, we see that at the end of the days, the Hebrew nation not only will be in the shore side, in Netanya, Tel Aviv, and Ashdod. They will be in all of the promised land. So it's a question of time that it will become also to reality, hopefully nowadays.
Even in Israel, even in Jerusalem, every time we had an event in Hebrew University for unaffiliated Jews, we end up getting more Gentiles than Jews. There's a lot of overseas students. The question is, what do we do with these people? I had the idea of possibly encouraging them not to become Noahides or Gerim Toshavim, but to teach them Torah and encourage them to also want to become Jewish. I always felt that this is what was missing in Arab-Israeli relations. Muslims were never given an alternative to radical Islam. Someone could say that Noahidism is an alternative, but it's not a viable alternative. It's not a rational alternative. In other words, Islam is a very sophisticated religion compared to just 7 laws. If someone's coming from Christianity or Islam, the only viable alternative to those belief systems, if they're serious, is to convert to Judaism.
What you're saying is very interesting and very good point. What you're missing here in this part, what you said, is that those who are accepting upon themselves, even by themselves, not before they're standing in front of 3 Jewish people, okay? Those who are accepting upon themselves to become an Noahide, they have permission to do also other mitzvot. Maybe I will surprise you, okay? The Gemara, the Babylon Talmud, in Masechet Chulin, is speaking about 31 mitzvot that the non-Jewish can do, that the people who are Noahide can do. And if you know a bit the Babylon Talmud, for example, another thing is from where the Babylon Talmud in Kiddushin, again I'm saying 31 mitzvot, not 7. in the Babylon Talmud, in Masechet Kiddushin, from whom the Babylon Talmud is learning how to do Kibud Orim, from Dama Benetina. He wasn't a Jewish person. So we have the Mishnayot in Masechet Maaser Sheni, where it says that when a non-Jewish person, Ben Noach, is giving charity, we need to use it in the right way, in an honorable way, and not to say to we're not taking from your charity. So there are a lot of mitzvot that they are allowed to do that is already mentioned 2,000 years ago, not today, and also from the Geonim side. So if you are a serious person, you won't stay only with the 7 mitzvot, and you have a permission to do more than the 7 mitzvot. And the question is how much you want to do, and it's very important also to do things and not to stay only on the level of the thinking. And this is one of the differences that we have from the Christian world, okay? That we have also a lot of deeds, a lot of doing things, and not only to speak on the other level. So if you're asking me, I will give you an example for a different way of thought that we are working with. 30 years ago, I was part of the Beit Din of Giyur. Okay, I will say it like that. But let's speak. Okay, I was in Vilnius 2 years ago, in Vilna. Okay, where my grandfather ran away, and I was there, and I met a person, very, very unique person, who in the last 20 years is very inside to the Judaism, and learning and teaching people. Okay, all sorts of things that are related to Lashon Hara for the Chafetz Chaim, and to Hilchot Midah, how to relate with the intersex things in Israel. And he's doing this, when I met him 2 years ago, without saying to anybody that this is the Jewish way. He was learning from rabbis in England and rabbis in Israel, okay? And he was doing from time to time also events, bringing to a big, like the Times Square, something like that, 7,000 people, and to teach them all sorts of things that are related to the Hebrew, Jewish ideas, even though he was a Goy, a Gentile. And he also, he said to me, I want to become a Jewish. And I asked him, where are you going to do much more influence in this world? With whom? If you will become a Jewish, you will sit down maybe in Bnei Brak or in Jerusalem, and you will become, something very esoteric, very small. All what you're doing today in front of so many people, and you're doing so much influence to your people in Vilna, in Vilnius. And he said to me, he never thought about this point. And those students who are coming to Israel, I know some of them. I know all sorts of people, all sorts of stories. I have a very good, I would say, student that is finishing his PhD in Haifa, a very clever one. And some of them asking us to do this conversion. And what we are trying to tell them, we are showing them that they will have much more influence, and God maybe ask them not to be Jewish people, but to be a non-Jewish person, and to have much more influence in their communities, instead of going to the Israel nation and, to not to bring all of these good ideas to a lot of people. Now, again, we're not, if someone is insisting and wants very much to do conversion, so we're not saying we're sending him to the next organization, You can speak about a chain. So we have the Sanhedrin organization, and we have us, and then we have also the people who are dealing with the conversion. We're not dealing with conversions, and we do believe that it's much more preferable for those who have the intention of getting closer to God to be connected with us and to do the right work inside the communities, to bring the word of God to all the world.
Wanting to become Jewish or wanting to be part of Israel, it's more than just wanting to take upon yourself more mitzvot. Not to mention that the whole notion of Akum Sheshavat Chayiv Mita, it's a machloket whether a Gentile could keep any mitzvah they want. The Rambam goes both ways, but I think the Rambam explains it the best in Mor Nevuchim, the mashal of the palace. that some people keep mitzvot like they're chopping wood. That means there's no reason behind it. There's no connection with God. But people should keep mitzvot always being conscious of who they're serving and who they're worshiping and what they're trying to attain. And that's what's promised to Klal Yisrael, this relationship with God, being in a brit, being in a covenant with God. That has nothing to do with wanting to pick and choose which mitzvot you want to keep just for the sake of keeping mitzvot. No, we keep mitzvot because we want to worship God, because we want to be in a relationship with God that's established in Torah Shebiktav. In Torah Shebiktav, we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Parshat Re'eh telling them to choose life, to choose Torah. In other words, it's better to accept the Taryag mitzvot, to enter under the wings of the Shekhinah, than to live like a Gentile, picking and choosing your own ethics.
What you're saying, it's almost right, because it's not so simple to become a Jewish. And as a Jewish, we do have, I will take a different parallel. I will say it like that. I will start with this. I will take a different parallel. I think that the much more exact parallel that we can take for that is those who knows how to drive bicycles, those who knows how to drive motorcycle, those who know how to drive a car or a truck, and those who knows how to fly an airplane. And also in an airplane you have, very small airplanes, and you have also jet-lag airplanes. Okay, once we had also the Concorde, or maybe even to be not only a pilot, but to be also someone who's going to the space. What I'm saying that there are differences between people, and this is what I said before. And one of the privilege, I would say, for the non-Jewish people, that they can become connected with God by doing some of the mitzvot and not all of the mitzvot. And they also, as nations, can decide what the mitzvot that they are taking and what not. And it's something that is written down also in the Rambam, in Ilchot Melachim. He says here, very interesting, this is also how the Khatam Sofer is reading him. It says in Halakha Tet, in Perek Yud, in Halakha Tet, that the Goy she'asak b'Torah chayav mita. He is allowed only in the 7 mitzvot. But in Halakha Yud it says, then Noach she'ratza la'asot mitzvah, Noach had wanted to do any mitzvah, משאר המצוות התורה, כדי לקבל שכר, אין מונעים אותו לעשות אותה כהלכתה. He is allowed to do that. The Khatam Sofer is saying already that there is a difference between Goy, who is not allowed, is not permitted, and he didn't accept, not for himself and not for others, and between a Noachite, who accepted for himself, or another state who accepted in front of others, in front of 3 Jews, so he is allowed to add more mitzvot. And there is some sort of a privilege. And if you will take, for example, the prayer of King Solomon, when he reorganized the temple, and he did it, there is some 3 chapters, very, very long chapters of a lot of praying. So he says there, that for the Jewish people, there is a very long details when God is going to accept our prayers or he is not. But for a Gentile who is coming and want to sacrifice in the temple and want to pray in the temple, the only thing that King Solomon is saying there, please listen to him, that's it. So there are, all sorts of levels, how exactly you're getting connected and being part of this, this elite team of God. Mm-hmm. And there are those who can do, I will say, a bit less. You can take another parallel that you can take. Another example is from the TV and the radio. There are a lot of radio waves, a lot here that we can't see them. But if you have the right transistor, the right machine, you will manage to hear those waves. But if you have a machine only of FM and not AM, mm-hmm. so you will hear one thing, you won't hear another thing. So the Gentile people, they have a very small, I will say, channel with a few mitzvot, and they can expand it a bit more. Mm-hmm. And the Hebrew nation is much more complicated and sophisticated mm-hmm. machine, I will say it like that they can also take an airplane jet.
Mm-hmm. This is why I said in the beginning. So this is why I said in the beginning, I believe it's for people who are serious, who come from a serious belief system. If you're a complete kofet, if you don't believe in God, if you don't have anything, for sure, you have to learn how to walk before you can run. 100%. But if someone already identifies with Israel, you wouldn't say it's better, if he's serious, to become a Jew than to remain a Gentile?
It's very hard to say this word, because, we believe, it's in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, we believe that when someone is supposed, when a soul is up there in heaven, and it's the time that it will go down here to the world to come to one of the bodies. So God is asking her, do you want to be male or female? Do you want to be a Jewish or a Gentile? Okay. We believe that it's something that you're deciding also there. Because of the birth, we forgot what we decided, but we are deciding. It's very hard to answer that it's much preferable to become a Jewish. The Jewish also is containing on the back, holding on the back something very, very hard, okay? It says, I'll tell you the other side, that people don't really want to acknowledge, I'll say it like that. It says, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek la'olam haba. All Israel people have a portion in the world to come. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, in the inside, okay, in the part of the Kabbalah, they're explaining that God is going to force you. If in the first time that you came here to this world, you didn't behave in the right way, so you will come here second time and the third time until you will do your best to take your part in the world to come. So there are much more. Sorry, Gilgul. Okay. There are much more. I will say a hard situation to be a Jewish person. It's much more complicated. I will say it like that. And people, the souls, they decided when they were up there. And there are all sorts of ways of connection. So if you're asking me what is better, it's hard for me to say in a very straight way, this is the best way.
Let me ask you a question.
God,
Let me ask you a question. If you found out today that your grandmother wasn't Jewish, would you remain a Ben Noach or would you become Jewish?
Are you asking me specifically?
Specifically. As
a specific person? I don't know. It's a really good question. It's something that, it's very theoretical. Right? I have a pure Jewish blood in my, at least something like, at least something like 7 or 8 generations upwards. It's a very good question. I think that if today, today that I passed a long time ago, my 50 years old, and I'm already inside, the Jewish community and everything else, it's very hard to say that I will say to myself, no, I don't want to do, again, a conversion or something else. Because
I think it's a greater zchut to remain Jewish.
It's also, don't forget, today, it's not a greater zchut. Today, as part of the, of this nation, and after I worked in this army and everything else, so, it's a bit hard to say today what to do. If I was, for example, if it's something that I would have known when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I'm not sure that I was saying to myself, okay, let's become a Jew, that's it.
No, but now you understand the benefits of having more mitzvot, connecting with God. You mentioned earlier that all of Israel has a chelik in Olam Haba. Then it says, and these are the ones who don't have, the kofrim, those who don't believe in Torah Sheba'al Peh. So there's good Jews and there's bad Jews. But it seems that not living up to as many mitzvot that you can attain is being on a lower level. And remaining with just 7, 10, 30 mitzvot is less than taking upon yourself 613 mitzvot. So more is better.
First of all, okay. So first of all, what you're saying here, it's interesting. It's okay, we say this before we learning Pirkei Avot. You're right. We say this every time that before we learning the Pirkei Avot, we mentioning this Mishnah, but it's a Mishnah from Sanhedrin, and I want to be very exact because the Gemara, the Babylon Talmud, is doing then a lot of calculation how also those who are mentioned in the Mishnah that are not allowed to become to the world to come, not allowed to be in the world to come, they're also putting them back inside. Okay, so we need to be aware that the Torah Sheba'al Peh of us is showing or exposing how you can, at the end, you have no other opportunity than to be part of the Jewish nation also in the next war. Now, I'm saying again, this is a question that a lot of people, I've heard from a lot of people. I'll say it like that. I've heard it from a lot of people, especially from those who are more serious, okay, and who are big bishops, who are in charge of a lot of people, under them. And they're asking me all the time, who is preferable to become, what is preferable to become an Noachite, to become a Jewish? It is a very hard question, and I think that it's related very much also to the question of the source of your neshama. And those are things that we can't really answer. At the end of the day, if you're asking me, what will happen? God is running his world in the right way, and some will become Jewish, some won't become Jewish. Some of the Jewish are assimilated in other nations. Those are things that we don't really have the full answer to them. And I understand what you're saying, that it's much more greater zchut to have more mitzvot. It's not like, in the Christian world, they're not speaking like that at all, but it's okay with them. It's their problem. It is what we say is basically quoting another Mishnah, okay? רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל. הרבה להם תורה, לכן הרבה להם תורה ומצוות. So he gave them more and more commandments so they can manage to become part of the God's team. We're not pushing people to do conversion, and very soon it will come also to the time, like in King Solomon time, that we won't have any permission to do conversions.
So in terms of the Rambam, the Surabia Yud Daled, he mentions it, actually, Yud Gimel, in terms of what they did in the times of Shlomo Melech. So it said that, yes, the Beit Din Hagadol didn't perform conversions, but then he says that Hediotot did perform conversions. And that's when he brings down that all you need is basically Gimel Hediotot. In other words, conversion never stopped, because you can't stop people from coming to God. This is a very sensitive area. This is why I'm very careful when I encourage people to consider Judaism, because Judaism is clearly not for everybody. But because it's such a sensitive area, we really have to take a step back and break things down. Ultimately, go back to the Pashat. We have a principle of Ein Mikra Yotzei Midei Pashuto, that the ultimate understanding doesn't depart from the Pashat, from the literal meaning. When we do that, we're able to separate what's Agadah from what's Halacha, and what's the Pashat and Torah Shebiktav. So it seems that the whole notion of Gentiles getting a chelik on Olam Haba, if they keep Sheva Mitzvot, is under Agadah. Now, I believe it. I believe that if someone is truly righteous, God is going to give them what they deserve. However, because it's really a machloket, not everybody agreed. We know the Rambam in Asur Bia 14 says that when someone comes to convert, we tell them the opposite. We tell them that only Israel has a chelik on Olam Haba. Why? To encourage him. And then it says that from the outset, we only tell him some of the mitzvot and not all of them, lest he turn from the good path back to the bad path. So in terms of Midrash and Agadah, that is something that really shouldn't enter the conversation when someone is asking, how can I please God the best? How can I have a relationship with God in the surest way possible? According to Torah Shebiktav, it seems that there's only one standard, and that standard is saying Nasiv and Ishma, being like the Hebrews and the Erev Rav, and joining yourself with Israel.
No. I think that you missed here something very important, because story you did a bit, I think, if you're asking me, as a rabbi. First of all, as I said before, okay, I was 30 years ago, I was involved in conversions, in the Beit Din of conversion, in the main Beit Din of conversion in the Hebrew nation, Rabbi R Chaim Goldberg, and my parents, till 2 years ago, for more than 35 years, they were very involved in the conversion things. And I know what we're speaking about with the conversion, what is halachic and what is agada. And I think that he did a bit of a confusion. And you quoted the Rambam in a few things, and it's right. It's starting with the Gemara in Masechet Yevamot, exactly how to do and what to do. And it's very important, those notes that you said. But let's not forget, there isn't any, I will say, nobody from our great rabbis are saying that if you are a Noachite who accepted in front of yourself or in front of three people, that you're not getting a portion of the world to come. Everybody is saying that when you're doing this, you're becoming a Gentile who will be from Chasidei Umot HaOlam, and he has chelek in Olam Haba. Okay, so the Rambam is saying also, from the Rambam you can understand that you're supposed to do this in front of three people. And the Ritva, as I said before, says that you can also do it for yourself. So we have those two options on the site, on our site, and you can do those things. Now, it is true that there are people who, I will say, the understanding that you can get that the Jewish people are one step above the Gentile. And he wants very much to go to this point, and I'm trying to avoid this point and not to mention it too much and too loudly. I will tell you why I'm trying to prevent from going inside and to telling you, yes, you're right, the Jewish people are much better. The issue is that, after all, I'm not God. And I don't know exactly. And this is one of the things I think that we lost along history, because in the last 2,000 years, one of the main things that we did, we hold ourselves, like that. We were very busy, so surviving. Therefore, we didn't do any work with the people from the Gentile, okay, from the Goyim. And we have already in the 1900s Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg. I don't know if you've heard about him, but he was a very great rabbi, Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg, in Italy, and he died in 1900s. And he was also part of the side of the Kabbalah. He was a very great rabbi with a lot of things. And he wrote a book, and he said that it's a time that we will start to discuss and to speak about the Noachide movement. And he started to bring out from a lot of places in the Talmud and other Rishonim to speak about this thing. And I think that there are things that we lost in the 2,000 years, in our last 2,000 years. Because when you're sitting down everywhere in the world, and the only thing that you're trying to think is how to survive, so you're not thinking about how to do influence to people. And also, most of the Gentiles, most of the Goyim, didn't came to the Hebrew nation to see what we have to say. They said that we punished and that's it, they replaced us. Today, when we came back to the Hebrew nation, to our homeland, and we started to build the world, the Israel state, and so people are asking us a lot of questions, and I think that to answer or to state in a very direct way that the pilots in this world are better than the people who knows how to drive cars, it's a problematic statement. And
it's a statement that the Torah makes, where the Torah says that if you don't accept the mitzvot, you'd be choosing death. Now, it's speaking to people who didn't have a relationship with God. So it seems that accepting the mitzvot is better than not accepting the mitzvot. For example,
but I will ask you a question, okay?
Sure.
The Kohen, are you a Kohen?
No, I'm Israel.
No, okay. Israel. So I'm also in Israel. So that as in Israel, we have a permission to marry a diverse woman, and the Kohen is not allowed. So you're saying that the Kohanim are better than the Israel people? I'm not sure. And
there's a distinction there. It's because those distinctions appear in Torah Shebiktav. We're talking about Midrashim ultimately. Agadot.
No. So what we know that God, when He said, "Vayitzav Hashem Elohim ala Adam lemor, mikol etz hagan tachol tochel," or when it says in chapter number 1 that God is obeying first Adam to do the 6 6 mitzvot of the Noachite. And when Noach is going out for the ark, he is obeying him, the 7 mitzvot. So we know that when God is saying, do my mitzvot, of course for the Hebrew nation, it's one thing. But as we see in the Hebrew nation that there are all sorts of distinguishes between the peoples or the crowds of people, so we know that there's also a difference. This is one of the most amazing things. The Hebrew tradition never asked from all over the world to become Jewish. Never. Okay? We're not like the Muslims, those who don't believe in the Muslim side are supposed to demolish, to die. And we're not like the Christian. Everybody's supposed to be like us with all of the crusades that they did along history. We do believe that there are differences. And those differences, after all, God created all of those people in the same world. He didn't create the Jewish in Mars and the other people in the world in Earth, you know. He created all of us together here. And like he's doing the distinguish between, like God is doing a difference between the Kohanim and the Hebrew people, okay? And the Kohanim maybe knows how to fly the main airplane. And the Hebrew people just know how to fly the Piper airplane, okay? And those Gentiles knows how to drive the car. And you can't say that those are preferable than those.
Okay.
Those are different missions.
So the difference is where it actually comes from. What's the makor for that? That one makor is in the Torah.
Exactly.
And, okay, so if the Torah tells you what God expects from you, that's clear. But God didn't tell Noach to keep Sheva mitzvot. In terms of mitzvot to Noach, it just means instructions, not taryag mitzvot. And we have a tradition of proselytizing. There's many...
7 did.
What do you mean?
No. For this we need to understand. First of all, the 7 are written down. Okay? Shofech dam adam ba'adam damo yishafech. You're not allowed to kill. Also not those who are wombs inside the mothers and everything else. But there are the mitzvot of the 7 laws of Noach. It's for sure it's written down. But here we're going back to one of the first things that I said in the beginning. The Hebrew nation is preserving 2 Torahs that we got, 2 Bibles that we got. We got the written Bible, and we also got the oral Bible. Okay, I'm explaining this in one of the courses that I have on Udemy. We have the written Bible and we have the oral Bible. And the oral Bible is not imagination of the sages. The sages are just preserving the side of the prophecy that we had also along the Hebrew nation, among the Hebrew nation. We had it for more than 1,000 years, and we know from our history that there were more than 1 million people who were, along those 1,000 years, more than 1 million people who were prophets. And this prophecy is God is discussing, speaking with people, and people are praying to God. And we got a lot of the insight, not only from the things that are written down, but also the understanding with the pshat, drash, remez, vesod, to those scriptures of the Bible.
Because of Kabbalah. Pardes is a Kabbalistic concept. I'm just saying,
it's not a Kabbalistic concept. This is what it says in the beginning of the Masechet Baba Kama, you know.
Yeah, but it doesn't mention Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. That's later. It mentions Pardes of Rabbi Akiva going up, but it doesn't say that this is how we interpret Scripture. It seems that it's really a debate.
Let me be exact. Okay, it says already in Masechet Gittin that Al Pi HaTorah Azot, Chazal is saying, also in Masechet Brachot in the beginning, that we got 2 Torahs, okay, that we got 2 Bibles, the oral one and the written one.
Yeah, but that's different from Pardes. Pardes, Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod is something else. I believe in Torah Sheba'al Peh, but I believe it's the halachot. Chazal always made a distinction between what's the Raita and what's the Rabbanan, what's a minhag and what's the actual halacha. So it seems that when someone is coming to us to convert it, not just coming to us, we have a tradition of going to them. There's many historians that teach that Jews used to actively proselytize, and it was the Emperor Hadrian who stopped it on threat of death. And even in Pesach and Pei Zayin, it says that Rabbi Eliezer says that the reason we're in Galut is in order to get converts. It doesn't say anything about making a ben or a bat Noach. Now, if someone wants to accept the Sheva Mitzvot, that's fine. But if someone's serious about God, it seems that it's more secure. Again, because what appears in the Torah, in Torah Shebiktav, overrides any later midrash, agadah. Now, the notion of the Sheva Mitzvot are not considered halacha l'Moshe Misinai. The understanding is that the Sanhedrin came up with this notion because what are you going to do with Gentiles who live in the land? You can't judge them by 613 mitzvot. You judge them against a bare minimum. So this is why a slave has the option to have his quasi-conversion, because every Eved Kanani was forced to circumcise himself and accept other mitzvot that women keep. But if he didn't want to do that, he was forced to remain a Ben Noach by accepting it in front of a court of three. So it seems like something that you remain, not something that you aspire to. If you want a serious relationship with God and you want to be sure 100% that you have a chelik in Olam Haba, it seems like it behooves you to go all the way, to be sure. Because Rabbi Eliezer also said that Goyim, even though they're righteous, don't get a chelik in Olam Haba. And Rabbi Yeshua argued with him. Why? Because Rabbi Eliezer is Beit Shammai, Rabbi Yeshua is Beit Hillel. It's a machloket. It's not 100%. Yes, the Rambam said in one place, yes, they do. In another place, they don't have a chelik. There's also a famous midrash, I think is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that he says that he goes to Olam Haba. And he says that there's no Gentiles in Olam Haba because he says that all the good that righteous Gentiles do, the reward they get is in this world and not in the next. It's a machloket. It's not 100%. If someone is serious, it seems like it would behoove them to go all the way. Now, not everybody's serious, but for sure it's greater to be a Jew, to accept the mitzvot upon yourself, than to say, I'm going to pick and choose what I want to keep. Why? Because Torah Shebiktav, which is the basis, is not clear on it. It doesn't mention the idea of a righteous Gentile. Now, it mentions a Ger Toshav, with someone whether you give nevela to. That's not someone in a relationship with God. That's just someone who's allowed to live amongst you. For example, the Muslims have a notion of dhimmi, of non-Muslims who are allowed to live in their vicinity just because they accept a bare standard of morality. But it's not what they should strive to be. Like, we should strive to keep all the mitzvot. For example, Chazal say that someone who's commanded to do something is on a greater level than someone who's not commanded to do something.
Yes. No, I'm listening carefully to what you say, and I think that at this point we can say that we a bit disagree. It's okay. It's also okay to have on this level of as you said, I think for yourself, that you can see the debates, I will say, that also the Chachamim have in the Gemara and other places, and the question of the Olam Haba and everything that is related to the concepts, I will say, of the inside of the Hebrew nation. You know that it says in a few places in the Gemara, in Masechet Brachot, in the end of Perek Revi'i, and also in Masechet Baba Kama, in the first page of Baba Kama, that the Divrei Nevi'im, the Nevi'im side, the Nevi'im words are just the same like Divrei Kabbalah, and the Kabbalah, basically the chain of the Kabbalah that we have along history is holding a lot of ideas that are less known, I will say it like that, to all of the people. And I agree with you that the things that I'm saying here on behalf of the Noachide, the world movement, are really based on the Kabbalah, and it's not, all of them not on the Pshat. And as you said also, also on the Pshat, you see Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer with their arguments about the Olam Haba for the Gentiles. And the same thing we have also with people like Rabbi Eliyahu ben Moshe, who was from the Kabbalah side, Rabbi Kook, who was from the Kabbalah side. He is stating without any doubt in one of his letters that a Noachide have a person, have place in the world to come. And we have, the Kabbalah chain that we are part of it. And I think that this is also one of the reasons why the rabbinical side of Israel is holding us as the main, I will say, official side who is dealing with this Noachide movement around the world. And it's okay, if there are people, and I met more than one, okay, who did the statement in front of 3 people, and then had the desire to continue on and to do this, to do conversion and to become a Jewish. And I appreciate those people also. And I think that it's related a bit to the source of what I said before, source of the soul, exactly from where it's coming. And you're right that one of the reasons why we were in a very long exile is to bring people to do conversions. And it's also written down in a few places in the Jewish sources. But I feel, I will tell you something. Maybe I understand that you're also recording us, and you will at the end reorganize this as some sort of a post or something like that. It's okay. You can quote also this part that I have to say. Me, Chaim, okay, but in the last 7 years, I'm dealing with so many people around the world. I think that to take the stage, the position, I will say, to take the position of telling people that to do the conversion is the most highest level and the best way of getting connected with God, it's something that I'm supposed to be, I need to be very careful to say a statement like that, because I'm dealing with so many people, and this is not something that we in the Hebrew nation ever wanted, that everybody will become Jew. And to become a Jewish person, it's to cross the lines. I can tell you so many people that I know that were in the inside debate, that on one side they wanted very much to cross the line, but they had all sorts of difficulties because of their families, because of their, basically because of the family who stopped them. Maybe sometimes it's the closest family, sometimes it's only, a bit far family. And they were all the time inside a debate and what to do with themselves. And at the end of the day, when they've heard about this opportunity to become an Noachite, and it really brought them to a very calm situation with themselves, and they're doing great things. So when you're dealing with all of the rules, you need to be a bit more with responsibility to say the things that will manage to encourage people to go to the next step and to do the right things, and not to bring them to a situation where they're feeling like they're level B and not the main thing, and then they won't do the Noachide rules in the right way, and they won't become Jewish because they can't, because of all sorts of reasons. And therefore, it's true. We took a step. We decided that we are very connected with the Kabbalah roots that we have in the Hebrew nation, and it's based on things that are written down in few places in the Kabbalah with few rabbis. And I think that this is our responsibility. And this is part of what it's being said, that at the end of the day, there will be a Torah Hadashah. It's not saying Torah Hadashah, the Christian world took it to a different place. But when we're saying Torah Hadashah, it says that there will be the Torah Eretz Israel when we'll return back to Israel. And part of it, what Gaon Mevilna is saying in others, that it's related to the Kabbalah. And this is one of the steps that we took as a position to say that, to show those parallels and everything that I told you. We can't say that the pilot is a much better person than someone who knows how to drive a truck. And to give the people also the calmness of becoming an Noachide, and it's giving them also the passion in the world to come, and being very good Gentiles around the places where they are, and they're doing a lot of good things. So it's okay. I understand exactly from where you're coming and why you're saying it, and I hope that I managed to explain myself and our position in a good way.
I appreciate you taking the time, Rabbi. Thank you.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much.